your business. So I congratulate all of you, because this is exactly why. And I called him, I said, and I thought, maybe if I change company. He came from very, very humble. See, my life insurance cannot replace the emotional loss if, God forbid, your husband dies prematurely, but it will replace the financial loss. What if the husband says, come on, Tony, she'll marry again? I say, let's face it, would you marry her again? But don't say that if she's sitting in the room. Okay. Now, what about selling protection to businesses? Ask a business owner, do you have an overdraft? Well, yes. How many times did you sign for it? Well, what do you mean? Well, you signed once when your business guaranteed it, and you signed a second time when you personally guaranteed it, didn't you? Well, yes, the bank insisted. When you signed the personal guarantee, you removed your family from being your beneficiaries, and you replaced them with the bank. Is this what you wanted? Well, no. We can use life insurance to replace the limit to your business's liabilities. What about key man insurance? You've got the building, the stock in the stockroom, the vehicles outside. What would you do if you came to work this morning and found no building, no stock, just a pile of ashes? What would you do if you realized you'd forgotten to renew the fire insurance? Well, I'd go to the bank and I'd borrow the money and start again. Now, I must have asked this question 1,000 times of prospects and clients. The question is, and knowing what you know with your experience and connections now, how long would it take you to get back to where you are today? And nobody ever answered longer than 2 years. Doesn't this prove something to you? It isn't the building, the inventory, the vehicles that makes the money. The only income producing asset in this business is sitting in your pants right now. Or if you want something simpler, if you were running a puppet theater, would you insure the puppets, or would you insure the man who pulls the strings? If I could show you how we can ensure the continuity of your business, would you like to take a look? Or partners in a partnership, let me ask you a question. How do you feel about being in business with your partner's wife and her next husband and their lawyer? What do you mean? Well, he's going to die, and his wife and her next husband and their lawyer will be down here every Friday for 50% of the takings, and you'll be doing all the work. Is this what you want? No. Well, don't worry, it might not be that bad. You might die first. It'll be his problem then. Now, how to close a case? You were talking before about closing, so I'll share my closing technique with you. It's very simple. I would just say to my prospect, do you have any more questions? No. Well, there are 2 questions that you should now be answering. The first is, and these are your last 2 questions. The first is, does what I'm saying to you today make sense? And of course they say yes to that. My second question is by far the more important one. It's how we feel about each other. You see, if I'm going to take you as a client, take the responsibility of giving you advice on your insurance, on your protection matters for the next 20, 30, 40 years that I'm going to be in business, I have to feel comfortable with you. And you've got to feel comfortable with me taking that responsibility. Now, I feel fine with you, Tony. How do you feel about me? And they always say, yes, no, I'm quite comfortable with you. Now, what have I done? I've just removed the clothes I've removed it from anything to do with the product, with the premium, anything else, and brought it down to very simply personalities. I feel fine about having you as a client. How do you feel about having me give you advice? And they always say, yeah, I'm quite comfortable with you. Okay, let's get this paperwork out of the way. Simple as that. We're closing on the relationship, not closing on, can I afford it, can't I afford it? The premium, which company, and do we believe in what we're selling, folks? My last death claim, we paid over £1 million on a 48-year-old husband, father of teenage children. He was a very popular man. There were over 400 people at his funeral, and they were all bringing condolences. And only one brought money. Me, the life insurance man. Never ever underestimate the value that we bring to our clients, their families. Okay. Now I told you what happens when I set daily goals. My business doubled. So I qualified for this funny club called the $1 Million Roundtable. Now, had there been a club like this is where I would have wanted to be. But I wanted to go to the $1 Million Roundtable because I'd worked so hard this year and I doubled my business. Now that year, the meeting was in Honolulu, Hawaii. Now this is 48 years ago. 48 years ago, Hawaii did not feature in holiday brochures in this country. I went home and I said to my wife, who was busy then with two little baby girls, as they were then, and I said, darling, I've qualified for MDRT. Oh yes, she said. I said, yeah, darling, I can go to the MDRT annual meeting. Oh yes. I said, yeah, darling, I'm going to Hawaii. Oh no, she said, we are going to Hawaii. Now, I have to tell you, it cost me 20% of my previous year's income to get to my first MDRT meeting. Okay, but let me tell you, when we go to something like MDRT, when we go to something like this where we are today, it is not a cost. It is an investment in our careers. What did I learn at that meeting? I learned the importance of self-belief. You see, Honolulu is a funny place. The convention center's downtown, but the hotels are on the beach. So they sent buses, coaches around all the hotels to take us to the convention center. I get on the first bus and I take a seat next to this big, ugly American. And they're very informal. And so he introduces himself, he congratulates me. At MDRT, you have a different colored badge the first time you go, so he knew I was a first timer. And I looked at his badge and it had this little ribbon underneath. It said top of the table. Now, top of the table, folks, it's about 60 or 70,000 pounds of commission in a year to make MDRT. It's easy. Now I say it's easy. I didn't think it was easy back then. But it's 6 times that to make the top of the table. So now you're talking about some more serious stuff. So I said, what's this top of the table? He said, oh, it's the top few hundred. I said, what do I have to do to qualify? He said, 6 times. That's 6 times. That says, take me 8 years to get here once. I could never do 6 times. I made my second great investment. I said, can I buy you lunch after the morning sessions? He said, yes. And I said, how do you do that much business? I said, it's out of my reach completely. And the words he said to me 48 years ago are as clear in my mind today as when he said them. We can achieve anything we want to achieve in this business if we just have the courage to believe we can achieve it. Is this all it takes? If I just believe I could do it, could that be the difference? I've always felt it's better to try and not succeed than not to try. You know, if we set a goal to do more than we're doing now, all goals are always into the unknown. If we fall short of the goal, it isn't failing. We only fail when we don't make progress. You plan to do 50% more this year than last year and only do 40%. That isn't failing. You just upped your income by 40%. So I went home from that meeting. I tore up all of my goals. I made a new goal. Top of the table. Out of reach, of course, but same desk, same chair, same clients, same company. What changes? What changes is in here. And on the 31st of December, I made my first top of the table qualification. Folks, that potential must always have been there. What hidden, undiscovered potential are we all carrying around with us? It is our self-belief which will set the parameters for our achievements. So let me tell you a story, if I may. I met Mary Peters. We all know who Mary Peters is, don't we? The Northern Irish, the athlete. In 1968, I met Mary Peters in the 1980s, and she told me this story. In 1968, she was selected to represent this country, the Olympics. Mary thought this was the pinnacle of her athletic career. She was a pentathlete, 7 events over 2 days. The pinnacle of her athletic career. She went to the Olympics. She was sharing a room with 2 American athletes in the Olympic Village. Each American athlete arrived, they opened their suitcases, they took a hammer and a nail from their suitcase and hammered the nail into the wall above their beds. And Mary said, why are you doing this? And they said, to hang our medals from. And one won gold and the other won bronze. And Mary went home a wiser girl, trained hard, worked hard for the next 4 years. Once again, she was selected to represent this country. But now Mary did not believe that representing her country would be the pinnacle of her athletic career. Now she believed only winning would be what she wanted, and she brought home the gold medal. And that's why she is as famous as she is today. Now, folks, in the Olympics, there can only ever be one winner. In our business, we can all be winners, and there is room on the winner's podium for all of us. But let me tell you, the medals for our production will always go to those who most believe we can do it. Okay, my last piece of advice is, we have to take responsibility for our own success. It isn't our managers, it isn't the companies, it isn't the economy, it isn't it could be the government, yeah. We have to take responsibility for our own success. When I got out of bed at some ungodly hour this morning in order to get to the station in time to be here with you this morning, my sole responsibility was to motivate me. And if we take responsibility for our own motivation, then some of it will rub off on our prospects, on our clients, and the people we work with. And don't people prefer to spend time with people who make them feel good? The English philosopher Francis Bacon, over 400 years ago, wrote these words: "The measure of a person's fortune lies in their own hands. If it is to be, it's up to me." So, when you get home this evening, when your much beloved said, "Well, did you meet anybody interesting?" you can tell them, "I met a man, he's 80 years old, he's been in the business forever. Struggled, and then made it big year after year after year after year." And you know what they'll say? Yes, but did he have a message? Tell them my message is very simple. Tell them I said, if I can do it, so can you. If I can do it, so can you. Thank you very much.
No, thank you so much, my friend. Thank you. Well deserved. Well deserved.